going on here is you've got a tent around your body. So all the heat that's coming off your legs and your lap and your groin and your body, it's all going up, right? And instead of just being leaked out the top, it's going around your ears and keeping your head nice and warm. Hey, it's Greg here with Outdoors on the Cheap, and today I thought I would share with you a little trick I've developed over the years for staying warm in a deer blind, and also just a good thing to have along if you think there's a risk of you getting stuck and you might have to stay the night in the woods, or if you have a sleeping bag and you want to augment its insulative properties, a little extra, just a little extra bit of insulation you can add to that equation, but a very versatile form of that. So what am I talking about here? When you're sitting in a deer, I'm going to speak specifically to sitting in a deer blind, because anyone that's done it in a climate like mine, it doesn't look very cold today, and it isn't. I mean, I haven't even got my ears covered. But it can get very cold, and when you're just sitting still, you get cold anyway. And anyone that's hunted deer in the fall in the northern parts of the world, or I guess very, very far south, I suppose, far enough, you get far enough south, it gets cold again, right? You get cold when you're just sitting there, right? You get very cold. And there's, you can buy electric blankets and electric socks and all that sort of stuff, but what about going low tech? What about saving a few bucks? This is Outdoors on the Cheap after all, right? So what I've worked out over the years, and actually one of my viewers mentioned this recently, this kind of idea, and I basically use the same idea as this person, except I took it a little bit further. This is called a Ranger blanket, I think. There's another name for it too. I just starts with a W. Just can't remember what it's called. But it's a very thin nylon, but down-filled, kind of like a sleeping bag. Okay, so it's like a sleeping bag, but it's just a blanket. Okay, it's about what, I'm 6'4", so this is over 6 feet here, I would say. So yeah, it's about 6 by maybe 7, this one here. So I've seen some more 6 by 8. It's got these little strings, and you can actually tie it up to function like a sleeping bag if you really wanted to, right? If you were stuck. You can use it to make a shelter, but you can also use it to make a sleeping bag. But what's really useful for these, what I did anyway, is I cut a hole. I found an old hoodie at, like, Value Village. It's a place in Canada here you can go to buy used stuff for, I don't know, $5, an old camo hoodie. And I cut a hole in the center of this thing, and I can't sew very well. I mean, you can see the stitching. It's fairly amateurish. I don't know what I'm doing. Doesn't matter. I mean, I took home ec in junior high and learned how to sew a little bit. That's all you need. So the way I've got this thing rigged up is I sewed it so that the long part was front and back, and the short part was side to side. And so I can put this over top. And there is a way, just the way these things are made, to use them like a poncho. But I tried that, and when you put it over your head, you lose a lot of the stuff that's covering your body. Right? And it's also just kind of a bit awkward. I didn't like the way it felt, and I thought you can still use it as a blanket with a hole cut out and a hood put in. So let me just throw this thing on and show you what it sort of looks like. Can never figure out where the front is. All right, so that's a general idea. Okay, I think I got that squared up properly. I can zip this up and make it nice and tight if it's really cold. This is just cotton here. It'd be better to have something like merino wool, but then it gets expensive. You're not going to cut the hood off a merino wool hoodie. Those things cost like $100. It's a sunny day today, so I'm actually going to put this back on to keep the sun into my eyes. Okay, so now what's going on here is you've got a tent around your body. So all the heat that's coming off your legs and your lap and your groin and your body, it's all going up, right? And instead of just being leaked out the top, it's going around your ears and keeping your head nice and warm. So even though you haven't got much of a layer here, and maybe you didn't bring a good wool toque or something like that, your body is heating your head because all the heat that's going up is going around this hood. And having hunted for a number of years, I actually prefer hoods anyway. When you're sitting in a blind, they tend to, you could move them back a little bit, right? If you want to hear. right? I always find when I'm sitting in a deer blind around that last half hour of sunlight, I usually take the hood right down. I usually even take my gloves off. I get like extra ready sort of thing, right? Super dialed up, right? You want to hear everything and you're focusing really hard on being still and being quiet and so on. But another advantage of this here is that the material, it's not a noisy material, right? Some sleeping bags have like a, they make a sound when you move around in them, right? This here is very quiet. It's probably because, you know, it's military, so you'd want to be able to be quiet if you were scouting, being a ranger, you know, in advance, right? Advance in enemy territory or whatever like that, right? So you can get these different colors, and I'm not a salesman for this. You can, you know, I wouldn't know where to buy it. I saw this at an Army Navy surplus store. I think I got it for 25 bucks. I went online this morning, looked on Amazon. They were like $60 there. And it also depends on where you live. Things here in Canada tend to cost more, especially things from the US right now. It's just, you know, getting something across the border seems to cost a fortune now. So the prices of a lot of things have gone sort of through the roof. Like these little nice little wool gloves. I used to be able to get these for like a couple bucks, and now they're like $8, right? And that was just a few years, like 5 years ago, they were a couple bucks, right? Anyway, getting off topic. Yeah, so you could use something like this or a thin old sleeping bag. You know, I would go to a place like a Value Village, right? A place that sells used stuff. They have all kinds of sleeping bags there. Sure, take it home, you know, wash the hell out of it. You don't know where it's been, right? But you just cut the center out of it. Make sure that the long part is in the front and the back, and the short part is on the side, so that you'll notice when I'm standing, my hands are just below, right? You know, if I was really ingenious, I'm sure I could rig up some sort of thing that makes these into sleeves. And I've seen guys, you know, do this online where they make a sort of belt and they make a little jacket out of it. You know, if you were in a worst case scenario, I've never been in a worst case scenario. There's been a couple times in my life where I've been lost in the woods when I was younger, but you know, just I found my way out. That's a whole nother story, right? And you learn from that if you make it through that. But anyway, the point is, if you need to stay warm in a blind and you're finding you're getting cold, this is extremely lightweight. I don't even think this weighs a pound. It weighs nothing, but it does it does a lot to keep you warm, because all your heat, you know, it's got down, it's got this sort of, it's kind of windproof and it's kind of insulative, right? So it's keeping all your body heat, which, you know, if you had one of those, you know, special cameras that can sense heat loss, if you're sitting in a blind, you just see heat flying off your body, right? So with this, you're still losing heat, but you're losing it a lot more slowly, especially with the hood up nice and, you know, really up good, right? You might want to leave it a little bit so you have your peripheral, right? But yeah, sew a hood onto a sleeping bag or something like this. Get one that's nice and quiet. Get one that's light, so you bring it with you. If it's too big and too bulky, you won't take it with you anyway. This one here, fully compressed, as small as I can get it. I mean, I have it in this little haversack, and I'd say this is probably 3/4 of a gallon, 3 liters in volume, maybe even 4. It might be a, you know, 4 liter volume. But I packed this down to about 2 liters, half a gallon in volume. I think it's about as tight as I've ever been able to get it. Tried putting it in a 1 liter container, could not do it, right? 1 liter is about a little bit more than a quart. So perfectly, you know, easy to bring along. If you've got a game bag, you know, one of those vests that has like a sort of bag in the back, you can definitely stuff it in there with your water bottle, there's enough room for all that stuff, right? So this is the ideal thing to take out with you to the deer blind, or leave in a waterproof bag at the deer blind for when you're there. That way you have to bring it back and forth every time, right? Whatever you want to do, right? And you can, the great thing about this, you can walk around in it if you really need to. And it gives, you know, like if you were out and there was a light rain, you know, it would sort of, to some extent, keep that off of you. Not with this hood, ideally, you know, because it's not what is just cotton here, right? But I like the cotton because you can hear better, right? If this had a membrane, it would dampen noise a little bit more. So I prefer this, even though it's not holding my heat in as well, and it's not as waterproof, water resistant, or water repellent as the rest of it, right? So anyway, I think I've rambled on enough about that. If you're having trouble staying warm in your deer blind, sure, there's electric blankets, electric pants, electric, you know, there's all kinds of things you can buy like that. But you would be surprised how much warmth you can maintain by just keeping something like this, keeping your hands underneath it, right? Just keeping all your heat underneath this little tent. It's like a body tent, right? And it's relatively inexpensive. You don't have to go and get a camo Ranger blanket. I mean, you could get something gray, you could get something any sort of drab color, and just, you know, put a little bit of black marker on it, or paint, or dye, or whatever. I mean, you know, and I honestly, I'm skeptical as to how much of an effect camo has for hunting deer. I mean, they sense movement. It's not, camo is for hunting people and certain other kinds of animals that are really good at sensing color. It's just my personal opinion. So don't feel like you have to get camo. You're hunting animals, so you don't necessarily need camouflage. There's no point in paying a premium to get camouflage. If I was choosing between just green and camo, and the green was half the price, I'd get the green, right? You can basically get, if you wanted it to be a bit camo, I should do a video on this. You can sort of do something like a tie-dye thing with a bit of black dye from the dollar store, and you can make that green pretty camo-y, if that's important to you. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Until next time, enjoy the outdoors on the cheap. Thanks for watching.